Welcome to Artscape. I'm your host, Bill Harris, and we have a great show for you today. With me is local artist extraordinaire, Nicole Hamilton. Hey, Nicole.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us today.
Sure.
Before we start getting into all your paintings and the history of you and all that stuff, and I think if we just look at your paintings here, tell us how long you've been painting.
2 years.
That's just unbelievable. I mean, I think that's unbelievable, and it's also, I think, discouraging to us who've been painting for much, much, much longer.
Right.
But we'll get into your paintings and your art and how you make your art, but that's just astonishing that you've only been painting for 2 years. Anyway, so how'd you get here? How did you become Nicole Hamilton, the famous artist?
The short story is I began, like most artists, drawing, having fun as a little kid, and my parents really encouraged me. They brought, art supplies from work. They would scrounge colored pencils, and they realized, hey, we should get her the good colored pencils.
Yeah.
And I did a piece when I was 3 that I brought today, my first, formal portrait of my grandparents, and it's one of my favorite pieces still today. So through high school, kept drawing. And that was probably my focus, was doing dry media.
Yeah, just pencil, pen and ink, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Then I decided to go to college to study art, and my dad, being an engineer, said, maybe we can kind of shift gears just a little bit, give you something kind of consistent to go after. And at that time, the late 90s, or early 90s, commercial art, graphic design, computer design was huge. So I said, hey, Dad, I'm going to do stuff on the computer. I'm going to be a commercial artist. And then he was totally psyched. He's like, well, yes, let's send you to college.
Right.
Let's
something you can actually make
exactly.
money with.
Not so scary.
Right.
So could support myself, got the degree, and my first job, I was an art director for a national magazine. So, they were pretty proud, pretty excited, and I learned a ton.
So obviously that looked nothing like this.
Exactly.
So what would you be doing there?
I was working with a lot of handgun images. I was, the art director for American Handgunner. So I'm doing layouts, I'm doing type, everything. Huge pressure with deadlines.
So you weren't actually creating art, you were just sort of cutting and pasting.
I was manipulating other people's art and making it look good. Taking, the Japanese photographer was Ichiro Nagata, and he would send me beautiful, stunning images of firearms. So all I had to do was throw some cool type on there and call it a day.
Right.
It sounds simple, but hours and hours of work to come up with.
Now, did you find that fulfilling? Like that was meeting your artistic needs?
At first, I'm like, oh, this is it. I've made it. This is what I went to school for. But when you have 5 editors standing behind you saying, why'd you make that green? Why'd you make that blue? And constantly adjusting and working towards those goals, I kind of was missing some of that creativity of really getting to choose my own stuff.
Right.
And I asked them if I could draw, and they're like, yeah, we're good with the photos.
So somewhere along the line, get married, have kids?
Yeah, my husband, former Marine.
Right.
So after 4 years of living in San Diego, we're going to Yuma, Arizona. So I'm like, awesome, I think it's time to have some kids. And, left the magazine world, and I thought, oh, having kids is going to be so much easier. Oh, my God.
Right, yeah.
What I was in for, having children. And the great part and the hard part of having kids, with the husband being deployed a lot. So I was really focused on my children at that point.
So now at this point you had left the graphic arts.
Yep, wasn't going to freelance. I was just going to be the mommy.
Right.
And I was always kind of itching. There's that little pull at you, I miss it. I want to do something.
Yeah.
So after Yuma, Arizona, we moved to Monterey. And being close to Carmel by the sea and all the galleries there, I would kind of poke my head in and be like, wow, this stuff is amazing. I want to do this again. So I started drawing a little bit, kind of getting back into it, and it was feeling good. And we went on a little trip to Paris for our 10-year anniversary. And I was walking into the gallery, seeing the stuff I'd studied in college, going to the Louvre, and just being blown away by the old masters and the oil paintings. And that's when it kind of set the seed of, could I be a painter? Do I even have anything to say that anybody would want to, look at?
So Yuma, then you end up in Fredericksburg.
We went to Monterey, California, and then right after Monterey, we came here. We were stationed in Quantico. And I'm in Stafford, thinking, hey, I want to take some painting classes. I want to learn how to use oil paint. So I'm going online.
Why oils? Why did you decide on oils?
I think that richness and depth, and the old masters, looking at Leonardo da Vinci and, Bouguereau, I was so just in love with that texture. And I thought, is there a shot? Can I try this? And what could happen?
Right.
So went online, and your name popped up as a figurative artist, local, that I could get to easily. Went at night after Honey got home from work, cruised down to Fredericksburg, take some classes. And I took your class probably for about 6 months. And that was it. I was done. And I think about the same time, after 6 months, my dad passed away. And at 58, you know, working so hard and kind of, you know, not being able to enjoy his retirement and getting to do what he really wanted to do, I said, I'm not going to wait any longer. So now I'm totally going for it.
Yeah, and you have, and you have. Yeah. Hey, let's talk about this big old piece behind us here.
Sure.
I mean, it's just astonishing that, again, you know, you probably painted that after you'd only been painting for about a year and a half, right?
Yep.
So why don't you tell us about that one?
This piece, I wasn't intending to paint a carousel. I was just on a trip to Minnesota, where a lot of my family's from, and I have a friend who works at this carousel, and she got me in early in the morning and said, hey, come and check this out. This is where I work. And I was so in love with the hand-carved horses and that feeling of craftsmanship and detail. And so I took a bunch of photos, and this is what came out of it. And I wanted to have that, you know, feeling of movement and that depth, and really be inside that carousel and almost about to hop on that horse and ride it.
Yeah, you could feel it moving and the great light in there.
Thank you.
Now, you painted that on linen, right? And you work in both canvas and linen, right?
Mostly linen now because of the texture. I like that.
Explain that to everybody, what the difference would be between the linen and the canvas.
Sure. Canvas is just a tighter or a looser weave, so there's like a kind of bigger holes in between. Right. And there's a smoothness, I think, to the linen. It's a much tighter weave, and I just like the feel of the linen. Yeah,
so I think more people that do really fine work choose linen, as the canvas tends to be a little coarser.
Right. Yeah, I think the details pop out on the linen.
Yeah. Now, I ask this a lot of artists. To have any sort of success, I think, you need to have a little bit of support at home, and your husband Jason has been a great support of you.
Huge.
Yeah, and also I think you must have found that moving into Fredericksburg was just a great community to move into. Tell us about, like, because you've been in other communities, other art communities. Tell us about Fredericksburg.
I think there's a sense of family, and that, not that it's easier, but there's just like a comfort level that people are really accepting. They'll share information with you. You know, a lot of other places it's a little bit tighter and keeping the secrets to themselves and not really being able to share as much as they do in Fredericksburg, and that's been a tremendous help. So whenever I ask any question, everyone's really willing to help and support me, which is pretty impressive.
I think people always point out we're all sort of in competition with each other, but I think we're all as supportive as possible. Everybody wants to help everybody. And
yeah, when someone else sells or someone else you know, feels really good about their work, I'm right there with them, supporting them. Yeah.
Okay, hey, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Nicole about some of her pieces here, and we'll be right back after this short break. This is Artscape.